For today's recipe, we're going for a quick and easy, tasty option that really lends itself to a weeknight dinner. There isn't a heap of prep work to be done, so the majority of it can be knocked out well before dinner time. I really wanted to do this one because this is the reason why I started this channel. To demonstrate that delicious food doesn't have to be complicated, have 100 ingredients in it, or take half a day to cook. This is the bulk of the ingredients for this simple yet stunning meal that will happily feed 2 adults. There are many ways to make schnitzels or chicken cutlets depending on where you hail from, but this is the technique that I use. Grab your large chicken breast and trim off any large bits of fat, blood and stringy grossness. Follow the grain of the meat and remove the tender. I then like to cut the thinner tip off so the bulk of the breast is a more uniform shape. Cutting horizontally, cut the breast in half lengthways. Now you have 4 pieces that don't look like much, but when you gently bash these things with a kitchen mallet, you'll have 4 decent sized snitties. Remember, this is a weeknight dinner and not a palmy at the front bar on a Friday night. Season both sides with salt and pepper and put aside while you prep your breading station. 3 bowls, one with unseasoned plain flour, breaking up any clumps with a fork. The other bowl with 2 eggs, scramble and incorporate with either a whisk or a fork and just make sure it's all mixed well. And lastly, the seasoned panko breadcrumbs. Add salt, pepper, smoked paprika, dried herbs and mix well. This is pretty much how most breading stations will look. With tongs, coat the first piece of chicken with flour on both sides. Then move to the egg. And lastly, the breadcrumbs. You use the flour because it helps the bread coating stick to the meat. You can use normal breadcrumbs or even buy pre-seasoned breadcrumbs, which I've tried and they're fine. I just use panko for everything because basically I just think it's better. And I usually don't like buying pre-seasoned anything. I know what flavors I like and it gives me the freedom to experiment as well. Once they're all breaded, they can be stored at room temp for an hour or so, or in the fridge until dinner time. Just make sure you pull them out at least 30 minutes before cooking. This is the way I do my mashed potatoes. I learnt this from my mum, who I think learned it from Maggie Beer. Peel and cut your potatoes into smaller pieces so they don't take too long to cook. Salt the water and boil them until soft. When the potato falls apart with minimal force from a spoon or a fork, take it over and strain, then return to the pot. Add a couple of tablespoons of butter and a couple of splashes of milk to the potatoes and give it a rough mash with a fork. You can use a masher if you really want, but you'll be passing this through a fine mesh strainer after, which will guarantee a lump-free, silky smooth result. Once you've pushed it all through the strainer, scrape the bottom and chuck it all into the pot. Taste for salt and pepper and put aside until dinner. This can be done ages before eating time and just reheated on the stove while you're cooking the broccolini and the chicken. For the chicken, get your frying pan over a medium to high heat and add about 1 centimeter of vegetable oil, getting it ready for a shallow fry. Using a chopstick or wooden spoon, put it in the oil to check for the temperature. If there's bubbles coming off the wood, then it's hot enough. Add the chicken 2 at a time so you don't lower the temperature of the oil as you cook. It should only take a couple of minutes either side, but the best way to know is to check the bottom, looking for a golden brown crust, and then you can flip. Because these fillets are thinner than your usual pub snitty, as soon as the crust has formed on both sides, then the meat will be cooked through. I have to go on record and say I'm really not a fan of a fat schnitzel. Chicken breast isn't very flavourful, so by flattening these out you are increasing the surface area of the crust, and that's where the real flavour is. Once they're done, put on a paper towel to soak up any excess oil and add the broccolini to your salted boiling water. You can definitely steam these if you would prefer, but I tend to just boil. Basically, I'm lazy and it saves on dishes. Cook for 2 to 3 minutes. So they're cooked through, but they've still got a crunch to them. Then you can strain and plate up. Put the chicken down all nice and fancy. Now just look at that beautiful colour. Add your bunch of broccolini and a good dollop of your mashed potato. It's a really simple dinner that's tasty, filling, easy to knock up, and doesn't break the bank either. The gravy I have used in this one is one that I'm developing as we speak. A gravy from scratch with all natural ingredients. Keep an eye out for that video coming soon. You've got your greens, your creamy starches, and your protein, and one delicious plate. Definitely get in the kitchen and give this one a try.